Hello! Welcome back. It's Death Diary 126. I'm going to cut to the chase right away. Sectors are dead. They are gone. They will never be coming back. They were one of the reasons why they existed is because tiles and all that stuff were in the game, and micromanaging a ton of planets was incredibly difficult, or at least monotonous, so sectors were in. With the new planetary systems, sectors are the way of the dodo. That does not mean, however, that they're going to be replaced. So there is a rework going to be coming here. There is still a certain type of grouping of planets in planetary clusters that is going to happen. So let's take it here for the 126 Death Diary sectors and factions in 2.2, because yes, we are also going to talk about factions a little bit. Now, I've already said that sectors are going to be removed completely, mainly because the automation that was required for it is no longer necessary, as in all the tile stuff that we talked about earlier a little bit. However, it's kind of cool to see that this is now going to be it. So instead of the sectors are still going to be there in a certain way, basically what's going to happen is that sectors are going to be reworked as autonomous administrative units within your empire. And basically you have these planetary clusters or galactic clusters or stellar clusters, and those will be your sectors. Kind of like how right now the what is the word I'm looking for here? The groups of stars that can pop up, basically, and those will be your administrative sections, and those can also be coordinated by a administrator or a governor in this particular case. Good news about governors, there will be no longer a cap on the joys that is leaders. So we'll have infinite amount of leaders. The thing is, the bigger your empire, the more leaders you have, the more expensive they will be. So with all these new administrator areas, you will be able to add new leaders and governors to it and let them develop those areas as they see fit. Of course, you can also take direct control. They're not entirely sure how it's going to be working in terms of taking that control, or where the resources are coming from, whether or not it's going to be the local resources from the quote-unquote administrative area, or whether or not you're going to give them a big influx of resources. So yeah, this also means that there is no longer a core sector limit. If anything that previously used to give a bonus to core sector planets has been changed into a different bonus or been removed altogether, which is kind of great. So good times on that one. But yeah, like I mentioned, leader cap is gone. Then there's no real talk about de jure sectors. There's definitely something to be said about that. You can send lump sums of energies and minerals into the sector budget, which is kind of what has been done in the past as well with the previous ones. Sectors, they will only build if you allow them to. Civics will be added to deal with all this stuff, and basically a whole bunch of that. So it's actually kind of cool to see what we're going to be doing with sectors, because yeah, they're gone. Anyway, moving on towards faction happiness rework. For those of you who've been following the channel for quite some time, you will know that I have been excessively bitching about the factions in the past. They're going to be changed so that happiness no longer applies to them. Instead, we're going to get approval from them. So what that basically means is where previous factions would only give influence when they were above a certain percentage of happiness, factions will now always give a certain amount of influence, and basically that will scale based on their approval. So a 10% approval faction will give a 10% of a 100 approval faction when it comes to influence, which is kind of cool. Also, they will most likely be a lot clearer on what they want and what kind of policies they want to have enacted and that sort of thing. And that's something that I have already discussed at length in the past, that I'm not happy about how that all stuff works. But yeah, basically small boosts to factions will already give you a reasonable amount of influence. No real words about why influence all of a sudden is a lot more important than it was in the past. It's quite easy to churn out large amounts of influence, up to 7 or maybe even 8. But yeah, it looks like we're going to be seeing some changes there. Maybe that there are going to be additional influence sinks. Who knows? Faction issues, like we talked about, are going to be addressed. Xenophile factions might demand certain empire-wide policy settings that forces equal applications of species rights across all species. Pretty standard stuff right there. Anyway, faction happiness and most importantly, sectors going to be reworked once again, which is kind of cool. Next week is the big one. Next week is the Death Diary that everybody has been waiting for since 1.3 Highline. Next week, we're going to be talking about trade routes. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any additional input, feel free to leave a comment below. And of course, I've linked the Death Diary, as always, down in the description of this video. Thank you so much for watching. And as always, keep good care of yourselves and each other.